Okay, we should be set.
Thank you so much, Summer. Welcome, everyone. It is February 9th, 2021. We are at our regular City Council meeting. Welcome, everyone. It's 7:05 p.m. I'll call this meeting to order. Summer, please take us through a roll call attendance.
Okay, we have Mayor Emily Niehaus. We have Tawny Knudsen Boyd, Moab City Council. Joel Linares, City Manager. Ronnie Duressery, Moab City Council. Carly Castle, Assistant City Manager. Lori Simonson, City Attorney. Kaylin Jones, Moab City Council. Karen Guzman Newton, Moab City Council. Mike Duncan, Moab City Council, and Lisa Church, Communications and Engagement Manager.
Thank you so much. We are on section 2, citizens to be heard. We're receiving public comments by phone and online through Zoom tonight. Citizens will be limited to 2 minutes for comments. And we will turn comments off after 2 minutes. I want to point out that we are first doing citizens to be heard. We will then later in our agenda be doing our public hearing. If you are here to speak on behalf of during the public hearing, then I ask you to just let us know when you're called on, and then you'll be put back into the waiting room. Also, we do have the availability for people to write in as a citizen to be heard. We do currently have 2 comments from citizens that have been submitted online, but we will go ahead and get started in our citizens to be heard meeting. And it looks like everyone is brought up into the meeting. And so what I will do is just call on folks one at a time as I see them in order on my screen. So first up, Kent Green, I see you. Welcome to our meeting. Kent, can you hear me? Citizens will be limited to 2 minutes. I think we've got an audio situation. Kent, I can't hear you. Can you hear me, Kent? Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna move on, but we'll come back to you, okay? Stand by. Oh, wait, connecting to audio. Oh, Kent, I can hear you now. Oh, nope, I can't. Nope, I can't hear you now. We're gonna go to the next person. We'll get you figured out. Next up is Chloe Hedden. Oh, go ahead and unmute yourself. There we go.
Can you hear me now? It's working.
Yes, hear you now. We're gonna go to the next person. We'll get you figured out.
Okay. So, sorry, there's a little
yep,
lag. And okay, you can hear me now. Okay, good. So I prepared a little something because
we need to
I lost if I just talk off the top of my head. So, hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Chloe Hedden, and I was born and raised in Moab, and I can tell you I've never seen people here so upset or unified about an issue. The UTV noise in Moab during the high season is unbearable. I live on a formerly quiet residential street that now sees constant UTV traffic. My windows actually shake from the noise dozens of times a day as convoys up to 30 vehicles long drive by, many at high speeds. Constant noise is a health risk. The noise is driving us crazy and driving us away. Many people who have lived here for decades and greatly contributed to this community are leaving. We must do something about this issue. The moratorium that you guys are discussing tonight is the moratorium that's in place is good. Please do not allow local existing businesses to expand their fleet sizes during this time while you work out the specifics of the land use code. There are plenty of UTVs on our streets as it is. The existing businesses will be making money hand over fist as soon as spring returns with the fleets they already have. We must say no, and enough is enough. If we can't do it now, then when? Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. Kent, we'll go back to you.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
I can hear you.
Oh, great.
Oh, great.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that.
No problem. Welcome.
As a business owner, as you know, in Moab, we're 7 generations in here. We've got our livelihood soaked into this. This is our retirement, and hopefully we'll be able to sell it someday and be able to have a better retirement. Some of the moratoriums that you have in place is very restrictive, and it's unfair. I understand, and I get it, but it seems like the local people who are in business with side-by-sides are being punished, and they're being sought out to be the boogeyman. This is untrue. We are good stewards. We understand neighborhoods. We drive slow. We pick certain routes to get by neighborhoods that we don't impact. And it's not a fair moratorium because you have one company that might have 60 rigs and you have another company that might have 10 rigs. So how are you going to make that fair? Are you going to regulate Jeeps and Hummers? Are you going to regulate some of the mountain biking companies, which I'm not against mountain biking, that have four-wheel drive vehicles that also drive on the public streets and go into the back country? I get it. I understand the noise, and we as outfitters minimize as much impact as possible. And we do pick routes where we don't, where we try to limit the noise. Let's put it that way. I have actually had people on Mill Creek and my street that I use come to my office who are anti-OHV, by the way, and thank me for going slow and reducing the noise. And I've received numerous phone calls from these people thanking me, which really means a lot to us because we know that we're making a difference. But this is an unfair moratorium. You can't discriminate against one business over another. And it just blows me away that this is happening. I would really encourage the city to please look at this. I mean, we haven't even met with the city council to even discuss this with outfitters. I got a phone call the other day wanting to know how many rigs I had. I neglected to tell them how many I had because this is the reason why, because I knew I was going to be restricted, and it proved me right. I encourage the city, please, let's take a look at this. We can all come to a happy meeting. Don't put a restriction on just one particular business. We are being discriminated against. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you for your comments and thank you for your advocacy. Next we have, let's see, your screen says Tarek. You're muted. Go ahead and unmute yourself. And then please introduce yourselves.
Hi there. First of all, I'm on Terry's laptop with her. I'm Dorica Brewer, and I work at Moab Tour Company. And I just want to say that, I'm another one that my ancestors helped settle Moab. And Moab is a big enough place. There's enough room for all of us. And I just want a lot of these people that, as I call the haters out there, we do rent machines, we do guided tours, but we also take the time to try to tell each person that they need to follow the rules that the city has in place for driving on the streets. It's a privilege for us to be able to drive from the trail back and forth. And a lot of us do pay attention and we do follow these guidelines. Why can't we all work together? And instead of this 15 miles an hour already is causing road rage. People today were throwing a big fit. I got 4 different phone calls today at work. But what I would like to say is, if this moratorium goes into place, we've got great paying jobs right now, which in Moab, it's really hard to have a job that you can work year round. And if this goes through, there's going to be a lot of us that are going to be without jobs. And, we care about Moab just as much as everybody else does. And why can't we all just get along and come to agreement? And if we have to take a different route to drive to the trails so that we're not impacting certain neighborhoods, can we not work together and figure something out? Travis, do you want to say anything?
Yeah. Hello, Travis Clark. I kind of have a little bit of all sides because I actually work for law enforcement downtown, so I get to see a lot of side-by-sides throughout my travels. I'm also a business owner that owns a tour company that I'm trying to take off the ground. If you stifle me, I mean, I'm just starting out. I got 6 units. If you stifle me, how am I ever supposed to keep up with the other people? The moratorium is very unfair for somebody like me who's put a lot of my retirement and a lot of money invested in what I'm trying to do. And now you're going to stop me where you're at. I mean, it's really unfair. And I'll be honest with you, as I patrol the streets of Moab, it's not the tour companies that are your issue. Matter of fact, you're taking away the only people that actually teach the other people what is right and what is wrong. The BLM has it figured out. We're actually the stewards of the land. You guys don't have it figured out yet. We're not the issue. The issue is all the people that are coming in. There's other things that we can do other than just shut it down and make it impossible for people to make a living.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for calling in tonight. Zoom is clunky. Thank you for your comments. Next, we have Miriam Graham.
Hi, can you hear me now? I'm Miriam Graham, and I live in town. I've lived in Moab for about 23 years, and I do live in a neighborhood. The purpose, it's a walk-in neighborhood, and the purpose was so that it would be quiet. But unfortunately, part of it borders right on the road on Mill Creek Drive, going right up to Sand Flats, and the noise is terrible. Especially in the summer, you can't even keep your windows open if you want to sleep at night. And I think it's really important to try to figure out a way to limit the noise in the neighborhoods. And I want to thank the council, by the way, for doing everything you've done so far. And I do support limiting the fleet sizes to give the moratorium some teeth. So I also have a friend with me. She lives in a different household. Can she talk for a second?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sue Sternberg. I live here in Moab. I have since 2009. And I just want to thank the council for all it's done so far. And I want to go on record as asking to limit the fleet sizes. And I have a couple of Facebook pages for my dog business, and I have over 6,000 friends from all over the United States. And it was interesting because I posted a few links and a few of the petitions for the Make Moab Quiet Again. And I heard from hundreds of my friends from all over that many of them have stopped coming to Moab because of the noise and because of the motorized travel. It's not what they had signed up for. It's not what they had originally come here for. And so many people that I know are now kind of horrified to come here. And I just thought I would put that out here. So thank you for this time.
For your comments tonight, and thank you for zooming in. Mark Moore, you are muted. The bottom left of your screen should have, bottom left of your screen should have a microphone that if you click it, it'll unmute you. There you go.
There it went. I was double clicking it.
No worries.
I'm also a UTV tour and rental company in Moab, and I'm starting my 5th season. And by regulating how many machines, like Travis said, it takes about 5 years so you can start to make a living. And it's 5th year, we're turning the corner. If you limit the machines we have, then I'm not doing anybody any good. I have 6 employees. I feed 6 households in Moab, pay thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of sales tax that goes right to Moab. And I'm also a lifetime resident. My family's been here since the 1800s, and I understand. But there is ways of doing things. You guys should have came to us, put us all together in a room, put our heads together to figure this out. Now we have people divided. Moab is the 4-wheel drive capital of the world. It has been for how many years? Mountain bike capital of the world. How many years? We can all get along and we can all do this. And we understand. We also have no problem with certain routes. My guys have a certain route. That's the route they take, and they don't differ from it. We keep them off Main Street. We cross Main Street once. We have no problem with the noise. We don't like it either. The guys that are coming here, the rigs are built for the sand dunes. They can put a different exhaust on when they come because I have one. We understand that. But in this other study I was reading where it said so many decibels causes issues with your health. Let's say around 30 decibels. 30 decibels is the same as a whisper. 60 decibels is the same as the conversation we're having right now. And the average human can yell at 100 decibels. So we understand about the sound and the noise, and we're here to help. But by limiting the company, I just ordered 10 more machines. And I'm not going to sit here and $140,000 out of my pocket and not use them. This is how we make a living. And one lady said that we make money hand over fist. She has no idea what our insurance costs. She has no idea. It is the highest that there is. Just what we have to cover for the BLM alone, $2 million per vehicle every day is what our limit is. So it's not, we're making money hand over fist. We're making a living, but we only got 9 months. And then for 3 months, we're like everybody else. But by regulating what we do or how many we have, that's not going to stop the problem. It's not us that's the problem. We're here to educate. I talked to one of the senators with Kent earlier in the year. I'm willing to open up, do a nonprofit and open up with a grant, UTV Moab. Any information you want when you're coming here, you need to know. I'm willing to do that. So when people come here, they need everything they need to know. What curfew is, what sound decibel, put the information out there before they get here. And we stop people all the time. They're doing stupid stuff. My guys pull, three of my guys got in fist fights last year because they made people stop doing things on the trail they weren't supposed to do.
No fist fighting.
No, we don't. But some of these guys want to do that. They don't want to be told what to do. We have rules we need to follow, and all of us outfitters agree. And we will do anything we can to help.
Okay.
But
Mark, thank you. Thank you for calling in. I know Zoom is clunky. Thank you for calling in and your comments and your education. We appreciate
thank you.
it. Next, we have Jeremy Rowan. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I own Outlaw Adventures here in Moab, and just like many, last year we added UTVs to our fleet. We do Jeep tours as well. As many people have said tonight, businesses are not the problem here, and we are attacking businesses when your businesses in town are trying to help. They're trying to educate people. Many times we have called the BLM officers out on trails, and I actually had, last year we had 5 people arrested in one trip, one call to the BLM officers for doing stupid stuff. We are the people that are trying to help. One thing that has not been discussed that many people may not be aware of, we do have a new SRP, a Special Recreation Permit update from the BLM last week. Businesses are now limited to 5 vehicles behind us on a trip. So the person that said that we have 30 people behind us in a tour, a guided tour, it's just not the case anymore. Some companies may have had up to 10 in the years past. That has already been addressed. We now have 5 as our limit. So we're already addressing with the BLM and with other businesses how to keep things quiet. Limiting our use is not the answer. It's not going to stop people from coming to Moab. We don't want to stop people coming here. That's how everyone's salary that's watching this is paid, is the tax dollars from people that are coming here. So we can't limit that. We need to figure out how to help it and how to educate people, just like Mark said. So just like Mark, we are willing to do whatever it takes to help and to help you and to help the citizens of Moab. Thank you very
Jeremy,
much.
thank you for calling in. Thank you for your comments. They're very appreciated. We appreciate it. Next we have Stephen, and Stephen, I don't see your video, but you are up.
Sorry there. So yeah, I got some kiddos in the background. I keep trying to mess with the camera. I'll shake it.
No problem. Welcome.
Yeah, I work with the Moab Tour Company as well. So I will say, a lot of things have already kind of been said and whatnot, but one of the biggest things I want to make sure is really relayed to you guys is that if this does happen, and not just with us, but I know all the companies are in town, layoffs are going to be a major thing. You're going to really mess up people's incomes, their families, their lives. So, I really strongly suggest that you guys consider that before you do anything else. Another one is, as again, already been kind of said, is people here in town that are bringing their own vehicles are generally the ones that are actually causing more of the noise issues. It's a lot of, even aftermarket mufflers. I've had ones where we're right next to the Maverick gas station. I hear them over there. I'm going, what in the heck is that? Because I hear them all day, every day. But there are definitely those that have those latter ones. So that's even something you guys could look into. We're having like a city ordinance on, not modifying your muffler. So that could definitely help things out. Another thing too is, I know I've heard a lot of talk about even just getting rid of them, not having them on the roads at all, which I don't think is going to be a fix either too, because with trailering, that's going to be a whole nother can of worms, which we dealt with in the past too already. And that wasn't even as bad as it is now, to where if you try to do that, then it's going to be people parking in the middle of the road, people parking people's driveways. The entire trail has just been packed full, people parking up and down the road. So, I know you guys are in a tough situation trying to resolve this, but it's really, again, as many have already said, it's not so much the tour companies that are causing this issue. It's the actual people bringing their own vehicles, doing those modifications are really making a difference too as well. So, and I'm glad, you guys are trying to do things and, the speed limits and all that, and hopefully these things can work out, but definitely, just pretty much shutting it down is not going to be the answer. It's just going to ruin people's lives, their families and all that sort of stuff. So it's really not helping out at all. So
Thank you. Thank you for your comments tonight, Stephen. Thank you for calling in.
Stephen, can I get your last name for the record, please?
Allred. So ALLRED.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next up, Jason Taylor.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to me. I sent an email to you guys tonight. I don't know if you guys got it or not. I would just like to say I'm the owner of Canyonlands Jeep Adventures. We've been in business since 2004. And I know there was talk that this would incorporate the Jeep businesses, because of the way the state code reads, and if they're modified, that that they would then be classified as an OHV or ATV. And I would like to just ask that you guys look at that. Jeeps are quiet. We put a little bit bigger tires on it and a lift and a small lift kit on it, and it's concerning that it bumps it into this category, because we have people that are taking our Jeeps to California, to the national parks, doing the White Rim Trail. So I'd ask you to look at that. And then I'd just like to echo what everybody else has said, that us as outfitters, this is our office. We're stewards of the land, and I think we take this all very personally. I've been in Moab for, close to 30 years. I started out as a guide here, and that going after the outfitting business is kind of the low hanging fruit here, where we're your greatest advocates. We're your greatest help in making this work. And so, if we can get more people doing guided trips, or renting, from people in town who put down the letter of the law, I think it's going to eliminate, the noise, the trail degradation, and for everybody else. And if we can all work together to help combat those people who do come in that have the super modified machines, and that it would, we would all be working together to make it a better place. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you for calling in and for the education and information you provided. Thank you. Next, we have iPhone. And I can't tell who you are because you're backlit, but go ahead and unmute yourself. Gosh, You've got glasses and a beard. Yep, that's you. Yes. Yep. But when you come up, say your name because I can't tell who you are. Here you go.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I'm Anthony Charles. I live at
Okay.
788 Mill Creek, the community rebuild houses. I hope a lot of people can hear this because I've had an extraordinarily tough last year of the end of the season. Like, you know, I moved in May 16th into this house. 2 months after that, my body started going numb. I had last Tuesday, I was diagnosed with MS. I have found out that the noise that the engines emit are damaging to the brain. That's why my body triggered so hard with an MS attack. So I have this heavily documented. So also, I would like to say to all these people that are saying that we're the greatest advocates for all the locals, the greatest advocates will tell the people to stop driving on the sidewalks. I cannot even tell you how many times I have seen people driving UTVs, Jeeps, motorcycles on the sidewalks right outside my house. Last season, I had to go to a doctor's appointment. There was 14 UTVs scattered all over the intersection, from the corner all the way to the bridge on Mill Creek right there. I asked them, hey, can you guys get out of my way so I can leave? Their exact words were, no, I can wait until they are gone. They'll be gone in about 10 to 15 minutes. So my neurologist appointment was 10 to 15 minutes late because they took my freedom and my rights to leave my own house to go to a doctor's appointment. All these people are saying that they're the greatest advocates for us and they're helping us and they're fighting for us. I mean, yes, there are a lot of them, but there's also a lot of them that are full of crap. I am not telling lies. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not over exaggerating to prove a point or anything like that. I am telling you the 100% truth. I do have it documented on my YouTube channel. There's about 4 videos of showing the rental places, all the UTVs just running the stop sign right there coming off of Sand Flats. What they do is the first driver gets up there, stops, looks to see if there's any traffic, and then he just waves his buddies like that. Come on, don't worry about the traffic laws. There's nobody there. But they fail to realize I'm recording and I'm there 24 hours a day. I need to be involved heavily with you guys in the state and talking. I have so many ideas on how to fix things that, yes, it'll cost a little bit of money, but our community is worth more than just a little bit of money, right? We need to figure out, okay, we build a few warehouses all around where the roads to fun are. You know, Mill Creek and Sand Flats, that's one location. We build a warehouse that has a certain amount of garages in it for all the UTV rental places to be able to rent those and store their vehicles at the trailhead.
So we want to hear those comments too.
Sorry.
No worries. I need to comment everybody. Thank you for calling in. Thank you for your comments. You have been heard, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for listening. Have a good one.
You too. My screen just changed a little bit. I'm not sure why. Okay, next I have, it says Justin Rosenthal. Hi, Justin. Please state your name.
Okay, I'm unmuted now.
Yes, you
You
are.
can hear me? Yeah,
Yeah.
my screen changed too, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
But you did you get the name of the gentleman who spoke previously?
We did.
Okay, was that Anthony?
Charles, yes.
Yeah, okay. This is Khaki. I'm using Justin's computer because I couldn't get mine to do Zoom or anything. But I also live down the street from a rental company, and sometimes there's as many as 10 ATVs going by at a time. UTVs, what are your, side by sides? They are extremely loud. We can't hear each other speak in our yard. We have to stop having a conversation or go inside because the noise is just intolerable. And it has completely changed the quality of my life living in Moab. I am also one of 5 generations that has lived here on this same street. And just within the last several years, when all the ATV, UTV rental companies have opened up, in addition to just the barrage of that many more, UTVs that are coming to Moab, is just, I understand the desire and the, that it's a great business for a lot of people, but at what expense to all the other people that live here? I know that there was a petition at one time with 3,300 petitioners asking the city and the county to do something about the noise issue, as well as a lot of the detrimental effects that are happening. And so that's like, 3,300 petitioners that outnumber like 12 rental companies. That's 275 to 1 people that are having a hard time with this user group. And really, I don't see it as something that has, I love my community. I know Dan Mick from, years and years ago. And, he's dear to me, but I think that this problem has been created by our state legislatures by legalizing, making something street legal that really is not designed for the streets. And they need to be located at the trailheads or towed to the trailheads. And I think if we all work together to get our legislature, our state legislature, to rescind that law and go back to the way it was in 2008, when you towed a 4x4 all-terrain vehicle to a 4x4 all-terrain trail. There is absolutely no reason for them to be. Okay. So anyway.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sorry.
No worries.
Main thing is, I think the point of the moratorium is to just let everything settle. It's only for a limited amount of time to decide what to do and how to proceed. And that includes not letting more ATVs, UTVs get on the streets, whether they're from rental companies, or sales or whatever. Okay. So that's my spiel. Sorry.
Thank you for calling in. Thank you so much. Okay. Next we have Nina Barlow.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome.
Okay. I'll try to keep it brief. I am Barlow Adventures, which we provide Jeep rentals, guided four-wheel drive trips, and four-wheel drive instruction. Well, I is and I agree also that the definitions are, and if I'm failing with the public all the time and trying to explain to our visitors what is required and what is legal, as well as the thing that we constantly struggle with is what some of these legal definitions are. So for example, our vehicles are Jeep. The modification that are receiving is as a small suspension lift and tires, and they are legal in all 50 states. People can rent it today, drive to California, they can drive it to Canada, wherever they want to go, and they are legal in the national parks, unlike the ATVs. It's difficult to explain to people what an AT is when the city and the state is lumping our vehicles in with that. The bottom line is noise is the problem. The noise is the problem. And I understand whether it's a Jeep with a modified exhaust or an ATV, whether it's factory or not. The noise is what needs to be addressed. The outfitters are the only line of defense with the public that is coming from the outside of Moab and bringing in, whether it's Jeeps or ATVs, whatever, side by sides. We are the only line of defense. Some of us do a better job than others as far as education, but the legal definitions and the education, of course, needs to improve. The noise can be addressed also. Jason and other people mentioned most of these points that I've already touched on, but there's also things like we're working on electric vehicles, and so in addition to trailhead, but perhaps the development of electric vehicles will also help with it. Certainly EVs lend themselves to that even more so than Jeeps, which is what we're working on right now. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
But
You were
let's stay focused on the issue. Pardon?
You were breaking up just a little bit. I think we got the gist, but I just want to encourage you also to put some of your comments in writing. You're sharing some information that's really valuable for this council to hear. So I just encourage you to reach out to all of us with a follow-up just with the details, because you were breaking up a little bit during
Okay, I will.
tonight. And thank you for calling.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing comments tonight. Okay, internet, we can do this. Next up is Steph.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but you don't sound like a Steph.
No, I'm not. That's my wife's computer. Dave Hellman. I own the Moab Reservation Center and Extreme 4x4 Tours. Everybody's kind of hit on a lot of things that I would have said. First of all, the tour companies, once again, like everybody said, is not the issue. It's the people coming from out of town with the aftermarket exhausts. One of the speakers said something about she can't sleep at night because her windows rattle, or she can't sleep with her windows open. The tour companies are done about 30 minutes after sundown. So if you're sleeping 30 minutes after sundown, good for you. I wish I could do that. But I work usually 14 hours a day, and the tour companies don't run late at night. That intersection, I know there's a community build, and I knew that from the very beginning when I saw that happen on that intersection going up to Sand Flats, that if you built a house and you're building a house and you watch for a year all those machines go by, then hang on, that's Nina. That's a major intersection where there's going to be noise. Why would you choose to live there? There's plenty of other places in the Moab Valley that you can live. I don't live in a fancy house by any means. I know some of the other operators that have spoken live in we live in minimal places. We don't make a ton of money, but the number one thing is the aftermarket exhausts. No tour company runs aftermarket exhausts. I know one or two companies will run up to 8 followers, but I personally was out with Todd from the BLM and Andrea from Sand Flats, and I strongly encouraged them to make the 5 vehicle maximum for follow-alongs. Not only does it make a smaller group, it's safer once we get out on the trails, but this has nothing to do with being out on the trails. But 5 vehicles, the guide can watch the back person, but you get more than that. That's a whole nother separate subject. But the noise is the whole main issue here. And the tour companies, the rentals, no rental in this town has an aftermarket exhaust. We do not rent machines at all. We only do guided tours, just like Cowboy Kent does, Kent Green, and a few of the other companies. like Sean Walters, and we don't rent machines. They go with a professional guide. We drive the speed limit suggested by you guys, or well, we haven't been doing tours since you guys put all the signs up, but we will travel at the recommended speed. And by limiting, I'm a small company right now. We have very few machines on our side-by-side fleet, but there's other companies that have 128 machines. So by limiting me, how am I going to feed my family if I can only have a few machines? We're just like Mark was saying, 5 years into it, I just finished my 9th year in business. And this last year, somehow, it's obvious that Moab is in the middle of nowhere. Nobody could leave the borders. So when COVID hit, everybody wanted to go to the middle of nowhere, and that is Moab. So this last year was a very big year for a lot of companies. It has, set us up where businesses all throughout Moab. The rafting companies kind of had a hard time because of the COVID stuff, but the side by sides and all that, you're in your own machine, you got fresh air. It's a little different, but
it is. And thanks for sharing that. I'm trying to keep everybody to the 2 minutes.
Right on. Well, I just want you guys to think about the moratorium thing, and it's not the tour companies, it's the aftermarket exhaust coming in from out of town. So if they would start enforcing some decibel, there's Cliff Coons from the Motorized Trails Committee of Grand County has suggested very good things about pulling people over and checking their exhaust. If the aftermarket's too loud, pull them off the road, make them trailer to the, make them trailer. But I'll let you go. I'm on my 2 minutes.
Well, I just want to say though, thank you very much for calling in. Thank you for communicating this with the council tonight during this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciated.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. McFarland's, welcome. Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear us now?
We can.
Thank you. Mayor Niehaus, I think it's important that I just tell you that if I stay silent, then you think that I agree. And I don't. There are very few people in this community that our city and county council are listening to. And it's unfortunate that the rest of us don't have a voice. The businesses aren't the enemy. We're trying to find cooperation in the community, but yet we do things, the timing is very poor. We're coming through a pandemic where fleet sizes are definitely not what they have been. Everybody's trying to find their way through this. Why would we target a business community because we don't like them? That kind of discrimination doesn't feel right. And I just have to let you know that you're better than that. Thank you.
We just want to add also that the future is bright. There's change really close on the horizon. And any type of ordinances that you propose, that you write, you should spend some time figuring out what's going to happen next and embrace and incentivize changes that are going to make machines quieter and more environmentally friendly and sound. So rather than just a constant no, let's try and come up with a way to incentivize positive change for our environment and for our community. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in and for your comments tonight. I appreciate it. I am, oh, my screen changed again. Okay. Summer, are there any other citizens to be heard?
I do not have anyone else in the waiting room to speak during citizens to be heard.
Okay. Well, that was a pretty awesome citizens to be heard. It was really great to hear from our business community about our agenda item. We are going to move on now to section 3, administrative reports, 3.1 city manager updates. Joel.
Thank you. I'm gonna try and be quick to make up a little bit of time for us. We are doing the parklets again this spring. We have signed a order under the COVID rules that we have in place to get us to June 30, and we will be bringing you land use changes going forward from July 1 that will effectuate that change if we want to have it long-term going forward. So we do have 2 businesses that are still interested in that, and we're going to put that out there. And if other businesses are interested in parklets, then they can approach planning and we can get that worked out for them. We have finance. We have been working on budget. We should be getting our numbers for last month here in the next about the next week. And so the next meeting we'll have a finance update. We'll also are looking to replace Clint, who went back to his old employer when they reopened, and we wish him the best of luck. We are moving forward with filling that position, and we look forward to having that opportunity going forward. Question I have for you guys real quick is, we put out that we wanted to do a strategic plan. I'll talk to you guys kind of what that's going to look like. And we put out a date for the 4th and the 5th, and a couple of you responded back, and we had a request to change it to the 11th, 12th. Is everyone okay with that?
As the requester, I appreciate that.
So the 12th doesn't really work for me. Is the 10th and the 11th a possibility? Oh, it probably doesn't work for Tawny. Sorry.
The 10th and the 11th could work. We could just do them both 6 to 9 rather than doing one session in the day.
That'll work.
What time of Friday doesn't work for you, Kaylin?
Like 7 a.m. on.
Oh.
3 it is.
What?
So 3 a.m. it is, 3 to 7. That's what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Okay. So the 10th and 11th, 6 to 9. All right. We have started the process to do land use code RFQ to start getting a rewrite for that to get it updated. I've worked a ton with budget and legislature over the last couple of weeks. I am positive you are all going to give legislative updates, and so I'm going to leave that to you guys to run through because I'm positive it will just be respoken. So that said, we have a water ordinance public engagement plan update. Carly, is that you? Or no, Leslie?
That's me. So we've put together a sort of draft public engagement general plan at this point for reaching out because of the date and time water ordinance that's going to be considered a little bit later this spring. And I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see that, and we can talk about it for just a minute, but I'm also trying to be brief. So I have this also in a written form, but basically this is kind of a timeline of what we're looking at. And I believe the assumption was that the water ordinance would be voted on possibly in June. So beginning in March, we're looking at creating a resource webpage for water conservation efforts, including the watering date and time ordinance that might go into place. We'll be sending out news releases about that particular ordinance to make people aware, and also putting together a survey for city residents so that we can learn about their landscape irrigation habits. And hopefully this might make us aware of any issues or exceptions that might need to be included in the ordinance there's a variety of things, but we'd like to hear from the residents so that we know kind of what they're doing now, and that will also help inform us about ways that we can help educate them and provide them with additional information. I'm also proposing that we send a postcard to all the city water users with information about the ordinance, and also an open house and a public hearing. Obviously, the open house and the public hearing, which would be scheduled for May, the open house would depend on, where things are with COVID at this point and whether we can actually gather in person. It may be that it's warm enough outside by early May, which it usually is, that we could do something outside, sort of similar to the setup that we use for the hotspot committee meeting. And then we also have a day and time watering ordinance to be considered by the council for vote set up in June. I'd like to point out that all of the education efforts, including landscape watering demos and videos, which is something I think would be great for us to do, as well as connecting users to resources, putting messages on utility bills on a regular basis, and providing informational flyers, updating the website, et cetera. All those things will be ongoing. So, you know, that's what we're looking at right now. And this is open to any input that you all might have that you'd like to include. And it's not comprehensive by any means, but it is a kind of, outline and general timeline of what we're looking at doing.
Lisa, Carly, be sure to check with Cara Darwin on the water board. She's been the main driver on water conservation efforts, so she's already put a lot of work into this. So do pick her brain, please.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Mike. We'd like to pick your brain too, I think.
Yes, and the water board will be engaged they'll be part of the crafting of the ordinances and everything too, definitely.
We had also talked about creating a Xeriscape incentive program. And I'm sorry, because in Corona year, I have no recollection of when that was even discussed or in what context or at what meeting, but there was discussion. So yes, like time of watering is important, but so is type of watering. And we did talk also about incentivizing people moving from grass to xeriscape, from watering over to drip irrigation, and potentially putting together a grant fund to incentivize that prior to then passing an ordinance. Is that something that is possible as well? Is that like after this were to take place? When could we expect that?
I would envision that happening after. I mean, all of those things are things we would want to develop in I would say the next year. This is just, I would say, step one, this ordinance, as well as the water shortage contingency ordinance. But you're right about providing information about better irrigation practices, like a water check program, a sprinkler check program, resources about better landscaping options. Grants are available for the incentives you were talking about. All of these would be part of like a constellation of programming to address water conservation across the whole community, right? It's going to be a suite of options so people can kind of pick and choose what they like particular to their situation. Does that make sense?
Great, thank you. I do wonder if which would actually help us hit water conservation targets better, if it is time of day watering or transitioning to a drip from, spray irrigation.
Research has shown that like it's different for everybody. Like there's not one silver bullet for every single user. So some people, time of day is enough for them to change their habits. Other folks want to get more involved and totally like revolutionize their sprinkling system or their irrigation system. So the answer is yes, depending on who you're talking to. And we would want all of those options available eventually.
I appreciate that because I like the cornucopia. And then I do also want to, encourage also water catchment, because we do now have a state law that allows us to capture rainwater and store it to be used for landscaping. And now more than ever, when homeowners think, gosh, like I really want to have a lushy, wild, beautiful landscape, they could water that landscape for free simply by a small investment in a water catchment system. thanks to the state legislature passing that law. So there could be a way to also educate and incentivize residents to look at that as well as part of this. I'm just kind of bringing it up as part of the cornucopia, if you will.
I love that, like a rain barrel program, or even like catchment in their landscape. That's definitely a great idea.
Yeah, and we have vendors, locally that are doing that work. And so that is really great. We also have USU, Moab, encouraging that type of, rainwater swells, catchment and swells and curb cuts and things like that can facilitate that kind of passive watering. Again, because, if you're catching rainwater, that water's free as opposed to the culinary water from the city. Thanks.
So thank you, Mayor and Mike and everybody else. Those are all great ideas. And we'll do a comprehensive outreach plan once we have sort of the whole picture of everything. This one really was designed to just be about the first ordinance that we're looking at. So, but I really appreciate all those comments. They're awesome.
Also, we got a lot of grant applications, which will be on the next agenda for you guys for approval. And we also got all of the updating for the information for the Buy Local Bucks online. So that's available as well. The other thing we have on there tonight is the Utah Communities Update.
That's me. Hey, y'all. Yes, like Joel said, I'm going to give you an update on the Utah 100 Communities effort. And as a reminder, this is the effort where we're joining with many other political subdivisions of the state to employ the Community Renewable Energy Act, or HB 411, which was passed in 2019. And this effort allows us to engage with Rocky Mountain Power to transition to 100% renewable electrical energy. I want to alert you about a meeting that is happening February 17th, starting at 9 a.m. Each of you should have gotten an invite. If you did not, I'm happy to send it to you and to make sure that you have that. I encourage you to attend, but it will also be recorded and it will be broadcast on YouTube. It will be a public meeting. So if you miss it, you will be able to catch up. But attending means that you'll be able to answer questions, as we're going to be breaking out into smaller groups, and there will be a number of facilitators to walk through this governance agreement that we've been developing for the past year. And I just think it's a really great opportunity to make sure you guys are being well educated on the larger context as well as the intricacies of the governance agreement. So my update tonight isn't going to go into the nitty-gritty of that agreement, because that event certainly will. If you aren't able to make it, or if you don't have time to watch the full 3-hour video, of course I can provide another update to you and to the community to explain sort of the ins and outs of the interlocal. Also, we'll have Lisa like cross promote the event, so we'll know that, so community members will know that they can tune in and watch it, and maybe have an opportunity to engage with that process. Oh yeah, go ahead.
The organizer in the invite raised the issue that we might want to coordinate and not have a quorum at the meeting. Do you think that's not an issue, or should we do that?
If you all want to attend, we can just notice it, and someone will be providing, like, I think minutes will be taken. So if everyone wants to attend, which I think is fine, you can just notice it and say that it's available there, and we'll post the minutes on our website. So that shouldn't be a problem. But if you are planning to, just shoot me an email so I can do a count and see if we need to do that. So as I mentioned, like last year when we first started developing the governance agreement, what it does is it kind of outlines how like the cities and counties sort of govern ourselves when we engage with Rocky Mountain Power to like design rates, to procure resources. It establishes a board. We'll have a member on the board. It defines how the board votes, what each community needs to contribute financially, the different roles and responsibilities, and that kind of stuff. There's a version, the latest version of the ILA is coming out tomorrow. I will send it to all of you. Feel free to look through it, but it is going to be difficult to make sense of it without that larger context that you will get at that February 17th meeting. Although I'm happy to answer questions if you want to give me a call. It's just quite a hefty document. And I also want to provide you sort of with a timeline of the effort, the ongoing effort. Let me share my screen. Let me pull it up here. Oh no, that's not right. Okay, so the gray is what we've already done. December 2019 was the last time you took action. We adopted that resolution that said we wanted to participate in this effort. It's February 2021. All of the communities who have who adopted those resolutions will get the ILA for signature, for consideration and signature, and we'll want everyone who wants to participate and to contribute financially to do so by July 2021. Just so you know, I do have money. You have passed in this current budget money to participate. It was about, I believe, $10,000. And it's in the draft budget that we're developing now. So that's being kept track of. And if we engage by July and pay the cost, then we get to participate in sort of the program design. In other words, if we did it in December or January, we sort of miss out on being able to be parts of those early discussions when it comes to rate design and resource procurement. So there's an incentive for us to participate, by July. And then starting in January is when we really pick up steam. We sign a utility agreement with Rocky Mountain Power. We submit this application to the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission is going to be doing a lot of evaluation about our resources, the rate design, the technical aspects of procuring so much renewable power. And going into 2022, I know these look abstract, these decision points at this point. You don't have to worry about them too much. I just wanted you to see that by March 2023, we are hoping to have an RFP out to start building the resource. There are some other activities that we would need to do in the meantime, like pass an ordinance, committing us to the program, adopting a low income plan for residents in our community who meet certain thresholds and would get assistance to participate. But I just wanted to give you that sort of 30,000 foot view of the timeline and where we are. And there is another option that I want to just briefly mention. I know it's, I'm throwing a lot at you right now, but as you're listening to the February 17th meeting and participating, I want you to hear and start considering being something that's called an anchor community for this effort. So I hope I can explain this well. Something that was very difficult for the governance subcommittee that's negotiated this ILA is the moving target of how much everyone contributes, if that makes sense. Because if 23 of us contribute, the ratio is a certain thing, but if only 18 of us ultimately sign on, the ratio, so we couldn't find a way to sort of lock that down. So someone had a really ingenious idea of having anchor communities, a group of like 5 or 6 or however many want to participate, saying we're all going to guarantee the cost. We're projecting it is going to cost about $350,000 for 2 years, so $700,000 total. We're all going to sign on as an anchor guaranteeing these funds. And then as folks beyond the 5 or 6 or 7 of us join in later phases, we might not have to spend as much money in future phases. Does that generally make sense, what I'm saying?
Yes, Carly, I think there's a place for us to negotiate the little kid, the little sister rate. Because I'm aware of this conversation, and I think it's really important for us to say what we're able to financially or what we're not able to financially contribute as an anchor. So hopefully we're negotiating a rate that fits right with us in Moab, with our small population, with our lack of property tax, unlike others. And just we can be an anchor maybe, but we don't we're not anchoring the same kind of weight, or we're not shouldering the same cost. And I think that sounds agreeable to others. So for what it's worth.
I thank you so much for raising that point. It would not be like an even split, like we all pay the same amount. It would be based on load and population. And just to give you an idea of like,
but even more than population, but like more of, because we're similar to Park City. So I don't know if we want to use population number.
Yeah, right. And like our load is so small too. So just to give you an idea of like the order of magnitude of how much money we're talking, it's about $10,000 over 2 years. So $5,000 a year. It's not, that's where it is now compared to some of the bigger cities are looking at $500,000, $100,000. So ours is quite small. It is also about what we've already allocated. We already had in mind last year that we'd spend about this amount of money for it. So we're not committed to it. I just want to put it in your ear so you can start thinking about it. And as an option, and just let us know what you think and if you want to participate in that way. If we don't do the 10,000, we're more around $5,000. So it is, those are kind of the choices. I'm sure you do have questions. I know that I haven't explained totally everything about this, but hopefully February 17th will provide more insight. But do you have any general questions that you would like answered now, burning questions?
I think sticking to the 17th would be really helpful, because I think we just, and whatever you can share in terms of context.
Yeah, I would say what you would want to pay attention to on the 17th is the different ways we're going to be voting. There'll be weighted votes in certain circumstances. You might be curious about how that plays out, about like when we would need to pay money to make sure that it sort of aligns with your own fiscal priorities. And Lori, am I missing anything? Lori has also been kind enough to participate in hours and hours of going through this agreement. So like voting share, decision points, financial responsibilities.
Right. The governance agreement basically just explains how the governing body would operate. So somewhat similar to bylaws and who would be the officers. And it is the structure for how the program would operate.
Thank you. All right. I look forward to seeing you on the 17th, and reach out if you have questions.
Thank you, Carly. And Joel, do we have any other reports? Administrative reports for this evening? Okay, we will move on. Since we're at 8:12, I just want to say we're at section number 4, Mayor and Council reports. Council, I do just encourage brevity as we try to get through this meeting. So I will go first. I attended a water quality board meeting. When I talk about the legislature allowing us to use rainwater, that's the board that makes decisions like that. Lots of exciting things there. I attended a association of the Southeastern Utah Association of Local Governments meeting. I do want to celebrate having Gabe Wojtek on that board as well. As he's getting acclimated, it's really nice. One thing that happens at those meetings is that we receive updates from federal representatives. So we'll get representative, our Congressman John Curtis, as well as our senators. Their staff come to those meetings, and we do get updated. We also get these things called A95s. They're like notifications of things that are happening on public lands. While it's great for us as a city to be present, it sure is nice also for the county to have updates like that. So I just thought I'd share that because that happens at every meeting. Not that there was a particular one of note this last meeting, but that is what happens there. And then League of Cities and Towns, as a board member, I've been quite busy, but then also advocating for us as a city and also just being familiar with the housing bills that are happening. I don't need to go through too much of the bills of note here, other than to say, of course, we're looking at Senate Bill 168. That is the ATV bill that would set a curfew for us. That's in case anybody's been hiding under a rock, that bill has come out. And reminder that we have a legislative committee that is comprised of myself, Ronnie, Kaylin, Joel, Laurie, and Carly, where we will huddle and discuss these bills as they do come out in certain strategy. Also, SB 164 is a housing bill. I know that we all ran, with advocacy for housing. The good news about that bill is that there's a pre-development grant for rural communities in that bill. So the bad news is that there's some stuff that might not make it past this session. So we're just keeping an eye on that one. On the county level, HB 247 is the TRT amendments. We are standing solidly with our county, as it really is an advocacy bill for them. But I am so grateful that our representative, Carl Albrecht, is running that TRT amendment and was willing to work on a substitute of his TRT amendment with the county. That's just great work that they're doing, and we're very grateful. And then finally, HB 82, it's an ADU bill. While we allow ADUs in all but our R1 zone, which is very small pocket, I think you all remember R1. Who doesn't know where our R1 zone is? So we all know, good. Well, so we're lucky, but what it also does is kind of opens up our opportunity to further legislate. And there's a particular piece of that that might give us the opportunity to make sure that those ADUs are not nightly rentals. So I am hopeful that Representative Ward, who is the sponsor of that bill, really listens to us and the other resort communities as we struggle to keep a lid on, losing long-term rental housing to nightly rental housing. And I think that's it from me about all things legislative as well. So who's up next, Ronnie?
Sorry, slow to unmute. I have pretty much legislative. I'll spare you, but lots of calls, just updates from the Utah League of Cities and Towns. We have a legislative policy committee. Some of us are on, and then a city legislative policy committee. And then on the city's behalf, I spoke at the committee hearing for Representative Albrecht's bill, just to support the county in their position and support that first substitute of that bill. And the only other thing I had was I had an EMS evaluation committee meeting this morning. So we're just working on our annual evaluation of our EMS director. That's it. Thanks.
I just want to underscore Ronnie's legislative advocacy work, because she has been dynamite in following bills and following up with the right people to connect the right people to highlight the bills. And Ronnie, thank you for calling in for the TRT on behalf of the city. You really are doing a great job. And it's really fun to watch you work in this arena. So thank you for that. Okay, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll just keep it to the meeting with county officials and Cliff Coons, who represents Red Walk, Ride with Respect, and who spent about an hour with us, and much thanks to him. Cliff is advocating for stationary muffler test as a criteria by which vehicles might be required for noise compliance. Many of the people up at the state legislative session, which I did listen to. Ronnie, by the way, I want to thank you, Ronnie, publicly for so much effort that you put in keeping the rest of us in the loop. So it's a great thing. So thank you very much. But folks up there tended to focus on noise rather than interfering in businesses' lives, and I do agree. And Cliff was along that line as well. What he would like to do is set the stationary noise threshold, which is SAEJ 1287, at 90 dB as opposed to 92 or 92, I believe it is, thinking that he thinks that it'll catch a lot of aftermarket exhausts that are definitely too loud. A lot of people complain about today at the Citizens to be Heard. And that might suffice. And he thinks that that will run into less pushback from state legislators and UTV owners and so forth. And he may be right. I'm willing to give it a shot myself, as certainly as the first step. And if that doesn't work, then we can proceed with other paths in the noise measurement process. So I think I'll just stop right there because it's going to be a long night, kids. So.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you for attending that meeting. That was a lot of information, and I'm grateful for Cliff to have put that on with all of us. So thank you for attending that. Okay, who is next? Tawny.
I'm very brief because my meetings don't start till next week, so I haven't attended any. I did do a telephone interview with Cassidy Jones from Friends of the National Parks, I think. Anyway, radio interview that parts of it may air on NPR Utah, and it was in regard to ATVs and UTVs in our community. And it was not very long, about 20 minutes is all. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Tawny. Karen? You are muted.
Okay, am I on? Sorry, folks. So I attended the Colorado Association of Ski Towns. It was a 2-day, 3-hour meeting. The first day was packed with, first off, this is the first time I've attended. Amazing, because there's so much similarities with resort towns in Colorado and Jackson Hole in Canada. And the similarities to what we are experiencing in Moab is unparalleled. It was really great. So there was packed information and tools and info for resort communities, and it started off with affordable housing. There was 2 presentations from Vail, which the Vail Indeed, which we had locally. He came down, and then Breckenridge. And both show that deed restriction policies are showing to be much less expensive way to guarantee local housing compared to building housing units from scratch. And some of the comparisons was that it costs about $78,000 for a single family house compared to $281,000 for new construction. So that's pretty impressive numbers. The second day, super fantastic. There's a presentation from Whistler, British Columbia, and how their community used the number of bed units to decide how much the town of Whistler could grow. They advocate and have the support from the community with the tagline, it's where community thrives, nature is protected, and guests are inspired. And there's a real sense that, they're not looking at economic diversification. They are owning the fact that they are just a kick rear end tourist community and trying to make it the best for their residents and the best for their guests who come. And the bed cap reflects the carrying capacity for the resort, and it's a great tool. It's a modeling tool for staff that informs planning. So anyways, there was great discussions about special events. There's communities all over the West that are really having special event fatigue, and then there was discussions about migration, Zoom growth. So that was great. And then I attended.
Real quick, when you say bed count,
yes,
resident bed or overnight accommodation bed?
Overnight, well, actually all bed count. And so they try to keep a 75% bed count for residents. And because the point is to try to keep as many locals in the downtown area as possible. And so that bed capacity it is across the board. It's, you know, residential housing, it's the, you know, tourist housing,
And they don't have the camping that we do, but there's some camping. It's just very seasonal, right? Because
yes,
it's chilly.
Cold. It's a little chilly, yes.
A little
yes.
chilly.
But it was great. I could send there is the meetings online. I'll forward that to the group if anybody's interested to hear the discussions that took place. It was awesome.
Definitely forward that, and thank you
Okay.
for attending. Yeah.
Yeah, you bet. And so then I also attended the Growth in Utah informational 2-part series presentations that was co-sponsored by the Chamber, Utah League of Cities and Towns, and the Wasatch Front Regional Council and Envision Utah. The first session was focused on housing, and they talked about 5 solutions: changing and zoning, preservation of existing affordable housing, transit-oriented development, ADUs, and redevelopment agencies. The second day was, or the second week was about transportation and linking economic development with transportation options and housing decisions, and a focus with preserving open space. So that was another informative meeting. I was, you know, a lot of Wasatch Front info, not necessarily rural oriented. And then I had an airport board meeting. That was it. Oh, yes.
Go ahead.
I have had quite a few conversations in the last couple of weeks with constituents, and they're really curious as to when we think we might be going back to in-person meetings, and feeling a disconnect with not being able to be as engaged with our Zoom meetings. And I want to, you know, put that out there. So
I appreciate that. I mean, the legislature is kind of, you know, participating online and kind of doing a hybrid in the same way that we're doing a hybrid. But I appreciate you bringing that up. And thank you also, again, for attending those CAST meetings, because I know that was a big time commitment, but I think that that information was super duper valuable. So really, thanks again for doing that.
Yeah, no worries.
That was a heavy lift.
Kaylin was there too.
Kaylin was there too? Well, Kaylin, you're up.
I was at the CAST meeting too. And I just like to, Karen covered it pretty well, but I'd like to reiterate that the Whistler's approach to managing growth is very interesting. They have chosen to, we have sort of lumped our dealing with issues of equity into sort of this economic diversification, but they've really segregated it out where it's like, we need to take care of our residents, and here's how we're going to develop economically, but they're not mushed together. And then they've really taken a hard line. Like, they understand that there are limits to growth, and that's encapsulated in their bed unit limit. And then the issues of how they take care of their residents and really keep a lot of them in town is done through the linkage of resident bed units and guest bed unit proportionality. So, and they have a really fantastic website to explore all their other visioning and planning stuff. So in your spare time after the legislative session, you might go check it out. I went to the noise measuring demo, which Mike mentioned. Went to a housing task force meeting. We spent a lot of time talking about deed restriction admin. I'm on the legislative advocacy committee, and just one other or two other bills, but they're very closely related that I wanted to mention is there's a couple that about billboards, which would preempt local limits on the conversion of existing analog billboards to electronic billboards, which are a potentially really bad lighting, bad both for neighbors and environmental quality, resident quality of life, as well as night skies. So hopefully we will make some progress in getting those into better shape. I attended a travel council meeting. You know, they are engaged with the state and federal land managers on like getting trail and resource stewardship signage out there in advance of the looming tourist season. And a question came up about whether RAP tax spending at the city could offset some of what's currently being spent from TRT, and I didn't answer that because I don't think any of us knows at this time. I'm interested in these meetings starting earlier, but that's a topic for a later conversation. That's what I've got.
Thank you, Kaylin. And well, we do start meetings earlier when we have workshops, and I have committed to you to having putting more things in workshop items that don't have action. This meeting didn't have so much, but to wiggle. I tried to wiggle some, but then there wasn't much wiggle left. So, but I do appreciate that feedback, and I'm thinking about that. One more thing about this whole bed count thing. We're a resort community. We qualify as a resort community because we know the number, or we look at the number of resident beds versus overnight accommodation beds. We don't take into consideration camping, and we're at like 267% was the last number I heard. Maybe that's changed, but I'm going to throw that to somebody. I don't know which staff could figure that out. It's hard for us because we are so heavy camping. And so we can't capture numbers, overnight accommodation numbers and capacity in the same way that like a Whistler can. But I love this conversation because we have been talking about, we're feeling the limits to growth and having some measurement of that. So I don't know if Carly or Joel could kind of get out a napkin and do some figuring so that we could at least know where we are resort community wise number with our overnight accommodations if we're just looking at hotels.
Yeah, we can figure it out.
Because I think that conversation is going to happen as we're moving into this year as well. I mean, everything's tied to everything, but water as well. So
yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry, just quickly. I mean, it's interesting you say that because there is that, the local experience, the tourism experience and that capacity, through the bed numbers, but like you're saying, the infrastructure capacity, like we, really trying to, come up with a tool that we can talk about within our community, and they have buy-in, and we try to monitor what that looks like. So it's not just like this unbridled, free for all, which a lot of people think is happening, even though it really isn't. So, creating a story to that I think is important. So.
Agreed. Okay. Thank you all for the work that you're doing. This is a busy time during legislative session, plus all the other meetings. Plus, being kind of at this climax of COVID, where we've seen more case counts in our community than ever before, and a little bit of vaccine anxiety. So really thanks to staff and council for all of the work that we're doing at this time. I wore flip-flops yesterday and it gave me hope. So, all right, we are now in section 5 of our agenda, public hearing. So we are receiving public comments by phone and online through Zoom. Citizens will be limited to 2 minutes for speaking. Yes, we will just move into 5.1, public hearing, proposed ordinance 2021-01, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for property located at 478 Mill Creek Drive, Moab, Utah 84532, amending the subject parcel zone from R2 single household and 2 household residential zone to C5 neighborhood commercial zone. Corey, I appreciate you are here. I don't think that we need a presentation for this public hearing. I think we'll move right into opening the public hearing. And I ask Summer, it looks like we have one community member that's zoomed in. Shall I call on that community member now?
I don't think we've had a community member. I believe that Corey and Ashley were the only 2 in the waiting room, and Ashley is our applicant. I don't have anyone
I got it. Ashley, do you wish to speak on this at the public hearing?
Sure, I'll speak really quickly. First of all, I have a real sincere thank you to all of you for your service and greatly appreciate all the issues you're examining. And it's been a very interesting meeting. Okay, we have been at 478 Mill Creek Drive for over 20 years. And there are two sort of parts to this. One is how our business is growing and changing. And we have looked really hard at what we need going forward. And both Western Spirit and Public Land Solutions work around the West, and we have both employees and vehicles in other communities. But what we really need is a nicer headquarters that uses the space that we have differently. So we don't need a lot more parking or more bathrooms or more sinks or any of that. And if we did, we would have to move south of town. So we looked really hard at this to determine what made sense for us. What we really just need is a major facelift and a reorganization of the space and the facilities that we have. So we know the property has been zoned residential, and we looked at that. And that exact spot on Mill Creek Drive is right where, when you come around that curve, you go up the hill a little bit, and that's where all the machines put on the gas. And that is, it's very, very loud. And whether they're in groups of 5 or groups, whatever, it's pretty constant. So what we came up with is this idea to build a Moab style office building with an outdoor courtyard kind of thing in the back of the building, and using the building a little bit closer to the road to buffer really the houses that are behind us, and to buffer our activities from the road by using the building to do that. And we think that this kind of office building in this location kind of allows neighborhood life, like people can ride their bikes to work and work in this building. And we think by staying in town, we're minimizing the sprawl, and we really worked to make a plan that fits into the city's overall long-term plans. And we hope this building would be an asset that would be to the community long after Western Spirit doesn't use it anymore. So that is my quick update, and thank you guys for listening.
Thanks, Ashley. Are there any other comments for this public hearing? Summer? Anybody in the way?
I do not have anybody in the waiting room. We did receive one written public comment from Carrie Fife in support of the rezone.
Thank you very much. All right, unless since there are no other comments to be heard, could I get a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Tawny. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kaylin. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Tawny?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Karen?
Hey, Mary, I'm sorry. So we're voting on, I'm
the public hearing.
To close the public hearing, sorry. Yes. Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Thank you. Our public hearing is now closed. Ashley, thanks for zooming in. We are now at item number 6, approval of the minutes. 6-1 minutes, January 26, 2021, regular meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes written.
Thank you, Ronnie. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Mike. Discussion? I'll call for the vote. Tawny?
Aye.
Sorry. I'm going to start over again. I will call for the vote. Ronnie?
Oh, sorry, I'm trying to hear my name. Aye.
Thank you. Mike?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Tawny?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. We computer generate roll call votes ahead of time. So just wanted to follow that pattern. We're now at section 7, old business. 7-1, proposed ordinance 2021-02, an ordinance enacting a temporary land use regulation prohibiting for a period of 180 days the development and expansion of vehicle sales, rentals or leasing, commercial outdoor recreational uses, commercial and recreational tour companies, outfitters and guide services as they pertain to all-terrain vehicles as defined by Utah Code 41-6A-102 and 41-22-2. This item is labeled as briefing and possible action. I just want to start by saying that we already have a business license moratorium in place, and that we are all working diligently on the state level toward the passage of a bill that will give us local control to draft an ordinance that could help us define the boundaries of a curfew. We have action that we are taking currently. And so I just wanted to point that out as we enter into this agenda item.
So Mayor and Council, as the Mayor stated, you all know that the state legislature meets for only 45 days, and there is a bill which has been introduced, which would allow for an 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. on-street ATV curfew, which would restore our residents' quiet sleeping time and their ability to enjoy their own yards for at least a few minutes of daylight each day. This would apply equally to all ATVs, not just local businesses, and make a real difference. But passage of any legislation at the state level takes a lot of work to educate the legislators about the situation in Moab and to get agreement from different interests. In the last 4 weeks of the legislative session, I'd really like our city resources and staff time to be wholly focused on the state legislative effort and to see if the ATV lobbyists, businesses, and owners and state legislators are really willing to back up their stated concern about the Moab noise crisis by supporting and passing SB 168 as written. I move to table.
I'll second.
Thank you for that motion. Thank you, Karen, for the second. With a table motion there that doesn't allow for discussion, I will roll call for the vote. Karen.
Aye.
Tawny.
Aye.
Kaylin.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Ronnie.
Aye.
Motion passed to table. Passes 5-0. We will move on to new business, section 8.1. Proposed resolution 2-2021 declaring certain property owned by the city of Moab as surplus, briefing and possible action. Chief, you have been patiently waiting for your agenda item, haven't you?
I have.
I want to thank you for your backdrop because I'm pretty sure you are the photographer of that scene, aren't you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's so pretty.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Yes. So thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time tonight. I'll try to make this as quick as I can. Over the last 20 plus years, the police department has accumulated a variety of equipment that has a useful lifespan, and quite a bit of that equipment the lifespan for that equipment has expired. So rather than continue to hoard it, we felt that maybe we should go ahead and get rid of some of it. We went through a process. It took about 2 months to go through all of the equipment and create a list of the items that we want to get rid of. And I believe you have all seen that list, and it's about 4 pages long and quite varied. So I just wanted to ask if anyone has questions about any of the items that we are looking to surplus, and see if we can get those questions answered.
I have a question for you. Is this a Marie Kondo situation?
Is it a what?
Marie Kondo situation?
I think I know who she is, and kind of. It's my OCD just getting the better of me, and not being able to take it anymore, to seeing all this gear that's just randomly spread throughout.
I know that it's a heavy lift to go through and identify and surplus, so I just want to say thank you to you for doing that. Council, any questions about any particular items?
I want to know what an orange car part is.
I would like to know what that is too. We all looked at it and went, that's an orange car part. But we honestly, we don't know.
If nobody buys it, I think we should put it like in a display case or something.
Well, that would be my question, Brett. If no other public safety organization wants it, what do you do?
The vast majority of this will be destroyed. It's not worth putting up for sale. It's not items that really have any value.
Really?
The stuff that does have value, though, we auction.
Yes.
Kalen, did you have something?
Yes, I recall seeing the purchase of pepper ball guns early in my tenure on this body, and I see that there's also a couple on the surplus list. So I'm wondering, are those the same or are they different? Are you changing your strategy for non-lethal force or?
These are different. These are the pepper ball launchers that we purchased early in your career here were to replace the ones that we are getting rid of now. These are probably, we had them when I started 15 years ago, so they're quite old, and Pepper Ball Company no longer supports them. They don't make parts for them. You can't repair them, and these particular launchers don't work and haven't worked in years.
Thanks.
Good question. Thank you.
Tawny?
May I make a motion?
Yes.
I move to approve resolution 02-2021 declaring city property as surplus.
Thank you, Tawny. Is there a second?
Oh, I will second. Nobody
Thank
else.
you, Mike. Discussion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote via roll call. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. 1 second. Karen?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Tawny?
Me or Ronnie?
Tawny?
Aye.
Kalen?
Aye.
Ronnie?
You could just call me Bob like they do in my other meetings where there are multiple Ronnies. That was an aye, sorry.
Thanks, Bob. Passes 5-0. Thanks, Chief. Have a good night. Thanks for sticking around.
You too. Thank you so much.
8-2 proposed, is that, wait, yes, 8-2 proposed ordinance 2021-01, an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment for property located at 478 Mill Creek Drive, Moab, Utah, 84532, amending the subject parcel zone from R2 single household and 2 household residential zone to C5 neighborhood commercial zone. Council with rezones, typically there's at least one person that's in opposition to a rezone. I've heard 0. I would welcome a motion from this council on this item.
I do have questions, Mayor, for what it's worth.
I can open it up prior to a motion for discussion if you'd like. Go for it. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, well, first, there's several issues. One of them was the cost of the sewer situation. We pinged Nora about this, Corey, if you're not aware of that, about whose responsibility it is if the connector to the city's main sewer line had to be replaced, whose responsibility at whose cost it was. And furthermore, what the wider sewer situation is out there. In other words, if we did rezone to C5 and more businesses moved in out there, anything that would generate increased sewer flow, how much money, I mean, what's the prognosis on what the city would have to spend to have a sewer system that accommodated this zone change? And Nora told us, oh, there he is, Chuck showed up. She said, ask Chuck. So Chuck, we're asking you, please.
The question was how much of the, would it cost to connect to sewer? Is that right, Mike? I came in right as you're asking your question.
Well, just if you could just paint the broader picture of what a sewer upgrade to the city's main line likely to be necessary in the event that we rezone, and if so, how much money, very roughly, how big effort, how much money are we talking about?
Okay. May I share my screen? And it might help you.
Sure.
Sure.
All right. Can you see the aerial view of Google Earth here? This is
Yep.
the Western Spirits parcel. The green are our sewer lines as well as private sewer lines, the stub outs. The issue is that these are all 4-inch lines going out there now. This is an area that was built not to today's standards, and maybe not even through a lot of permitting when that area was built. And I don't just mean these particular houses, but we have quite a few of those in the city. So what we, at the design review team, we talked it out. Down here, we've got an 8-inch line down there by Milts. It would probably be, if there was a change in use here, it would require a sewer to be completed from here down to here, which is about 500 feet, which is probably a 6-inch line, though, depending upon use, which, we haven't seen, any paper changes until the zoning was determined and all that. Might be on the order, and typically the developer might pay that, but the order of $50,000 to $70,000 to answer your question, to get a new sewer from here over to here with manholes. And that's what it would require if it could
It
change.
wouldn't connect via Oliver?
No, because Oliver is all undersized, 4-inch lines already. And this is a dead line here, and that goes into a 6-inch line here, and it would be a longer way to go from Oliver. I would think, if I were doing it, I'd run it down here to this manhole.
For what it's worth, I believe the applicant's aware of that and is not concerned about the data that Chuck is presenting. Thank you,
Yeah,
Chuck.
you're welcome. We just wanted to make sure that we identified this stuff so people aren't surprised later.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion items? Ronnie?
Sorry if I somehow missed it, but Chuck, are you saying that when we look at that map, I mean, there are a lot of properties in the same situation?
Their sewers are working. It's just that if they change the use and upgrade them, those sewers are marginally working, those sewer lines. So if indeed with the new zoning, they come in with a higher demand on the sewer system, that would cross the threshold for that particular property to needing to upgrade and get down to that main. Did I answer your question?
I think my question is, I mean, aside from this particular property, when I look at that map, I mean, it looks like are there a lot of other neighboring properties in the same situation in terms of, if they had more use, they'd have the same problem with the sewer? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of that neighborhood is marginal. It's working, but it's marginal.
And in this kind of whole area of town, over here by City Hall, over towards the Mark, it has some really old sewer lines that are twisted and tied into each other all over with all kinds of little secret surprises. So sometimes, to be honest with you, we don't even know lines are tied in because they were tied in so long ago in a backyard, and we find them and we're like, that's not supposed to be there. So this is all just interesting over here in this part of town.
So Chuck, to further clarify, your map showed maybe half a dozen collectors, you might call them, radially feeding into a centralized collection point, and then it went from there on down to 4th East. Is the one that goes down to 4th East also a 4-inch line? In other words, and who's, if any of that needs to be upgraded, would a developer pay for it? Is the city on the hook to do it, or what?
No, so these are laterals, which is the term we use going from a house out into a main line. And this is the main line out here in Oliver Court. And typically we would put in an 8-inch line, and you can see that's a 4-inch line that was there historically. Okay. And then it goes down here, and this turns into a 6-inch line down here, but it's in marginal condition. And to Joel's point, here's a 6-inch line that when we filmed it, was dry and unused, obscured by cobwebs. So there's a line that was in there historically that we don't think is even being used now. So it would, for these folks, for Western Spirits, it would be better. The shortest run is about 500 feet down here to get into this 8-inch line. as opposed to going through here. Now, this could be a project, if, you know, one of our many projects, but we've got lots of projects ahead of it on the priority list on the sanitary sewer master plan. But this tends to be an area to upgrade.
And Mike, to answer your question, it depends. If it's just this area and the city's just going in and replacing the line, nothing new is getting built, we pay for it. If a developer is tying in up further up the road and it's creating additional flows, they have to pay a portion of it, their portion of the impact. And if it's direct development right on the property that the developer is requiring, they pay for all of it. So it kind of just depends on what the situation is, who's on the hook for the upgrade.
Okay, well, fine, gentlemen, that helps. So let me go just one more, and then I'll stop. So if we were to rezone it C5, there'd be an additional impetus, I would guess, to for, you know, the commercial zone to grow to the south side of Mill Creek, and more businesses there and more demand on sewers and so forth. Do you, there's a traffic congestion point of view that we can get to in a moment. But to finish the sewer question, would more sewer work be required than on the south side of Mill Creek?
If they were to develop, yes. Yeah, as you can see, there's not any lines over here. There's no line at all down here, down Mill Creek.
So, and as there's no line there, Mike, if someone came in and they wanted to develop those two parcels, they'd be on the hook to put the sewer line in.
What do people do for sewage now?
Some of them are on septic.
Development on those parcels up at the top.
Yeah.
And
They just added in this parcel here, they added a residence. They went through its subdivision and they put in a lift station and came up and are going under and tying in over here on Low Bridge. By adding a house, because they came off of septic, which is good. They paid for that. We did.
Okay.
Yeah, so the homeowner would have paid the impact fee to tie in, and they would pay for all the development costs there.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'll stop my sewer questions. I got some traffic questions, but I'll let somebody else start the discussion on that one because I don't think I'm the only one with them.
Mayor, I move to approve ordinance 2021-01.
Thank you, Kaylin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tawny. Discussion, continued discussion. Karen?
So C5, I mean, if everybody, I mean, I am a complete advocate of what Western Spirit is doing at that location. And if we could guarantee that Ashley was going to be there forever, I would say this is amazing because, I mean, it's been there for quite a long time. It is, it's a great local business. But the intent of C5, I'm very concerned about an upzone on Mill Creek Drive. I watched the Planning Commission meeting. There is genuine support to offer more opportunities for other residents to change their zone to potentially, like, I mean, I think it was a little discerning to or misleading to use the plan development for 400 to tie up into Mill Creek Drive, because Mill Creek is a completely different beast compared to 400. The width of that, like the impingement exactly where Western Spirit is so tight there right now. There's no way to make a left or a right. If the use was to stay the same, we're golden. But the fact that when you do a zone change, we have to think about future uses, and we cannot guarantee what that is going to be in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when that purpose doesn't, Ashley potentially wants to sell that business. And I just, C5 is supposed to be a neighborhood commercial zone to establish the primary purpose of providing a location where commercial establishments can be located where people who live in the surrounding neighborhood can obtain daily household goods and services conveniently. This zone is characterized by stores, shops, establishments situated in landscape surroundings that are maintained in harmony with the amenities of adjacent residential development. And I just, like, even actually, and I'd never even thought about it before, but a tourist guiding company doesn't really fit the parameters of a residential commercial business. And I'm just curious. I mean, I feel like this is going to be a domino effect on Mill Creek. And as it is right now, we don't have the ability to have commercial businesses on Mill Creek Drive. And, you know, the argument that it's just so busy and it isn't a residential area, that flies in the face of community rebuilds who developed 4 houses for families up on the corner. There's a redevelopment of a property, you know, right, not even a block away. And then there's a new residence across the street. And those open areas that are shown across the street, I mean, again, it sort of sets a precedent that we're open for commercial use there. And I just don't know that we would be having the same discussion if the Jeep business that is, you know, up the road wanted to open up a commercial Jeep business there. So I'd want to put those concerns out there. And I'm wondering, and I'd like to ask the planning department, is there another option to allow Ashley to do what she wants to do and not open it up for the breadth of C5 zoning?
Thanks, Karen. The real quick answer is no. And that's something that we had reviewed with Ashley, is exhausting any other options, essentially, for that non-conforming use being a commercial property in a residential zone. That opportunity to do those upgrades that Ashley and their business deems necessary. So outside of utilizing that commercial neighborhood zone to allow for that professional office specific use, not necessarily as they are a use that is focused around tourism and biking, but it is the use itself being a professional office headquarters, somewhat separate. They are a little bit close in touch with that. But the short answer is no. There isn't really another vehicle for them to achieve that.
Is it possible to do C5 with amendments where, or is there, can we talk about potentially like creating a new zone? Because we want to enable people to have their businesses in these locations, but the other, opportunities for C5 uses, there's no guarantee. And I just, Mill Creek is so tight as it is. And I just, to throw our hands up and just be like, okay, commercial, we're going to allow it is I think is a concern.
Corey, what are the housing typologies allowed in the C5?
Let me pull that up really quick.
Well, I have a thought about how to address this because I share a similar concern and I've given this a fair amount of thought. And I feel like the code as it is doesn't provide quite as much protection as I would want, but I think one strategy might be to increase our specificity about defined uses in the code so that it's clear like which uses which specific uses we're regulating, and then explicitly make it clear that they're excluded from C5 so that we have better protections on the limitations for that zone. Because even though, I feel like professional offices, to use a form-based code strategy, the negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhood are not that great. So professional offices tend to be occupied during regular business hours, so in some ways can be less impactful on neighbors than even a residential use. And so I'm not, but just in terms of preventing it from creeping into something that may be more impactful, I think there's a way to do that, but it's going to take some code modifications. But it wouldn't preclude
correct. Really
vote at this time. I'm done.
Thanks, Kaylin. Just getting back to the mayor's question, single and 2 household residential as well as multi-household residential. So essentially our full width of residential dwellings are allowed within the C5. And
So
then
this
maybe just briefly.
upzone includes allowing multifamily as well as office. Okay.
Correct. Along with some of the points that Karen was making and then Kaylin kind of followed up with as well. In the agenda summary packet, there was a brief description lower into the packet that describes essentially this movement that Ashley generated this particular action, but off of many of the community's input within that Mill Creek area, that they are all of them searching for some avenue of land use to alleviate some of the stresses that are coming from that increased traffic along Mill Creek in the forms of either increased density, maybe commercial opportunities, or just even increased land use options for buffering, whether it's sound buffering or fence buffering. Just the way our code is currently doesn't give many tools in the toolbox to allow that. So a small area plan was brought up in the discussion with the Planning Commission and then also with City Council some number of weeks ago. And that was brought to the attention of Ashley, and Ashley was kind of part of that conversation. However, Ashley wanted to be essentially a figurehead for that movement by saying, well, I want to really start this movement going forward and begin this discussion with at least that option for her property, even if C5 isn't the correct fit. We agree that some changes in one form or another might need to be made where C5 maybe isn't exactly it, but a small area plan could address more specifically those issues.
Well, Corey, if I may elaborate, I was two things, I guess. One is I talked to Nora this afternoon about what's C5, and I said, well, under what conditions is Ashley in? Because I looked at the list of uses and I didn't see it. She said, well, it's office space. Well, it is, but my understanding on C5 was it was not supposed to be visitor-oriented businesses. Okay, I mean, that was my understanding about what C5 was supposed to. That's why it's over on 4th East instead of on Main Street. That was always the rationale I always heard. And I agree with Karen that 4th East is a way better street. Mill Creek is pretty dicey with just 2 lanes. So if traffic gets heavy and somebody wants to turn left to go on the north side of Mill Creek, it's going to jam traffic, but get up there. So if we do revise C5, and I think that might be a great idea to be more specific, as Kaylin says, that's one thing I would do, make it clear that any further businesses there really need to be more directly intended for local use rather than visitor use. Because Ashley, no, I'm not chewing on you. You got to understand. I mean, I think you're great, but it doesn't quite fit. I mean, what I understand C5 does. So maybe you all, but it's the same old deal we always face. You're fine, but it opens the door to something else that we may not want to migrate to downstream. So maybe that's why modifying C5 would be the way to go.
Can I add a little thing? We've thought a lot about this, and
normally we don't allow applicants to speak while the council is deliberating unless the council has a question or is comfortable with that. So Mike, are you comfortable?
Of course I am.
Responding?
Certainly I am.
Ashley, go ahead.
I'll be brief. Our business is definitely more of a professional office than visitor services because we don't run day trips, and we most of our trips meet at the hotel where the guests are staying, and only a few of our trips meet at our building. And so if we really needed, that's why we're not on Main Street, and that's not why we're not south of town. We really aren't. We really are, our business is, we're looking for a professional office building headquarters. And yes, we will welcome some customers, visitors, just like an accountant or a dentist or whatever would, but because we don't do day trips, that's why it doesn't apply to us. But I understand that your concern is who owns this building next and what are they going to do with it? And I would just say that because the spaces along Mill Creek are a little bit smaller, like there's always going to be this parking limitation to whatever type of business you want to put there. And depending on what you guys do with Red Rock and the way it evolves, I just think there are some self limitations to it that a busy business that needs a lot of customer visibility is not going to want to be on the street anyway, because they aren't going to get that. So, but I think that so we did think about it, and we really are looking at feeling like what we are fits into that professional space, and places for people to work near neighborhoods where they live. So.
Okay, thank you.
I can echo that too. I don't know if everybody knows this, but I worked for Western Spirit for 4 years as Ashley's bookkeeper. And when I got pregnant with Oscar, I would waddle to and from the office. And so there is benefit to having more office space. I know that when Dave Bierscheid and Larson and Company, when they built their offices, they really opened up space to have more professional services. And I know the people that work in those buildings do live in the neighborhood, and I see them walking to and from work. And so, you know, having offices where you don't want a main street, I mean, it is a really good place for that. I want to also be careful that we don't exclude things like Milt's and Dave's Corner Market from C5. You know, I really enjoy, as a resident of, you know, that area, of that neighborhood, I really do enjoy having that sort of smaller convenience of things there. So I just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Karen?
Yeah, I'm not a fan
Tour
of
company piece.
What's that?
Hang up the tour company piece.
I did what about it?
Is your hang up the tour company piece?
It's no, it's the fact of what is going to be next. C5 is too broad, and it does not you know, I mean, I'm all about Milt's too, but imagine a Milt's on Mill Creek Drive. I mean, the traffic, in front of Western Spirit in particular, it opens up a little more in front of the park. There's actually a turning lane. There's no turning lane up until, you know, past what is it, the Love Ridge, I think, is that, or it starts even beyond that. And the fact that the Planning Commission stated that they were open to like opening C5 up Mill Creek Drive, we don't know what the implications are of Lions Back with traffic. We don't know what the implications are at the Abbey subdivision. And we already have such an issue at that stop sign where people do not use, if they live in Walker, Tusher, and all those other areas, they go the back way, never even get on Mill Creek Drive because the traffic is intense. So I feel like there's a sense of resignation of like, oh, it's already so busy, so we might as well just open it up for all commercial business. It's the gateway, and the irony is that Mill Creek Drive had the loudest voices in terms of, you know, quieting down Moab. I don't think opening up, you know, more commercial businesses is the answer. And I just would like to, I personally would like to return it back to the Planning Commission and offer them to think about another zone or changes to C5. I mean, I don't know if it has to be called C6 or we call it, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but I feel like we don't have a lot of options at this point.
Thanks for sharing your opinion.
Yeah, and Emily, let me expand a little bit further. I know it's taken a long time. I was on County Planning Commission for 8 years, all right? And I can, all that time, there were people developing 20, 40 acre parcels out there on Spanish Valley Drive. And right off the bat, I could see that that's three-way stop sign out there was gonna be a sticking point in the years to come. And gratefully, Arroyo has an outlet on the highway, but people are gonna come down Spanish Valley. We got Abbey Road, we've got Lions Back. Nora pointed out today that there's going to be construction traffic for years coming down from Lions Back, not to mention all the ATV traffic. And because there's no room for turning lanes and so forth, I do think it's going to be a congestion choke point. Now, Ashley can put up with all that and so forth, but Karen has a point. I mean, the choice in front of us tonight is to let her go now. And the way it stands, we could. But if we do so, I would really put the impetus on Planning Commission and ourselves to further narrow down the scope of what can be done with C5 out there in that particular parcel, because I think it's going to be a very congested point if we don't do something.
Okay, any other comments or deliberation for this agenda item? Okay, I will call for the vote. And thank you for everybody sharing your comments. Give me 1 second. Ronnie,
Aye.
Karen,
No.
Connie,
Aye.
Mike,
No.
Kaylin.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2. Okay, moving on. Section 8.3 of our agenda, direction to staff regarding Moab City Council changes to define formal initiation of land use code changes and to move noise code ordinance, noise code from Chapter 17 zoning to Chapter 8 health and safety. This is a discussion only item. And it's regarding direction. Kaylin, I'll pass this to you and to Joel to lead our discussion. Joel?
Well, to be quick, we are looking to move and address our code a little bit. And like I said, tonight, we're going to start an RFP program. We're going to start fixing our code. This section of the code belongs in the nuisance area of the code. And for some reason, it's in land use. And so we are wanting to move the noise ordinance restrictions over into health and safety where they belong and take them out of the land use portion. In order for us to do that, because technically it's currently in land use, we're going to have to follow the land use law to amend our land use code. And so we'll have to do public noticing. We'll have to go through public hearings for planning commission, and then bring it to you guys for approval to move the noise ordinance restrictions over into health and safety and move them out of land use. And so we're just looking for direction on whether or not that's something you guys would be comfortable with us bringing to you. And if not, then let us know that as well. Kaylin, anything you want to add?
Sure. I think, there is a lot of interest in updating our noise ordinances. And it's really outside the Planning Commission's purview, and I don't want them to have to deal with the politics of it. It's really not their job. And so by just moving it as it is now, without any changes, we'll relieve them of that responsibility. And then we can take the brunt of it, and because it's our job. So I think it'll just set us up for success by proactively taking care of it now.
So,
and then when we go to do it, it won't have to go through Planning Commission and another public hearing. It'll be all us and staff.
And it is staff's position that it has no business going through Planning Commission. This is not a land use issue whatsoever. So if everyone's comfortable with that, we'll go into the Planning Commission and going that way. Ronnie? You fine with that?
I just wanted to.
Okay, or was that a question?
Yeah. No, not a question, but I just wanted to thank Kaylin because it seems like these are both good things and good changes. So thanks for suggesting them and bringing them to our attention.
This makes good sense. I think it's just the smart thing to do. So.
Okay.
Mike, Karen,
No.
agree?
No, it's good.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, I'm for it. I want to further offer to draft a where I think we ought to head on the ATV noise issue. I'd like to make a stab at actually, trying to draft up code, which I would soon pass to Lori and to Brett and the mayor and so forth, all of you in the in-run, just to try to diagram where this might head. And what I want to do is establish checkpoint noise ordinances and how it actually might be written on paper. And I'd like to make a stab at that just so we can get the ball rolling in that direction. So Joel, whatever it is you do, you might, structure it so that we can amend it somewhere along that line.
Yeah, and so what we'll do is we'll bring forward the proper language to move the the noise ordinance out of here into health and safety. And then once we get that done, I'll circle back to Mike, and Mike can be circulating that in the meantime as well as we're working on that, but it'll be a two-step process. Move it, then amend it.
It'd be great.
Okay.
All right. That sounds like a clear direction to staff. Thank you, Kaylin, for working with Joel on that agenda item. We're on section 9 now.
We haven't directly addressed the formal initiation of land use code. Was that lumped in there, and was people agreeing to that as well? It just wasn't explicit.
I think so. But thanks for asking for explicitity. Is that a word?
It is now.
Yeah. Not a word, Mayor, not a word. Okay, moving on. Almost done here. Approval of the bills against the city of Moab. Tani.
Okay, I move to approve the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $271,518.87.
Second.
Thank you, Kaylin. Discussion?
Lots of good local bucks were redeemed. And trying to think of anything exciting.
It's okay if it's not.
It's pretty much not. It's pretty much office supplies and stuff.
All right. Well, then I'll call for the vote. Kaylin.
Aye.
Ronnie.
I think that was me.
Connie.
Aye.
Mike. Karen.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Thank you, Karen.
Second.
Kaylin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, staff, and thank you, council. We did some really good deliberation tonight. Thank you so much. Have an awesome night, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, staff, everybody. Nighty night.
Bye, everybody.